Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my favorite murder girls. So tragically, I did not come up with the word murder girl myself. I believe I originally saw this on Books and Pieces channel. She did a video about her favorite murder girls, and I absolutely loved that term so much, and I've been wanting to do this video for ages, and I'm finally, like a year later, getting around to it. So I went ahead and picked 7 books. The majority of these are fantasy, although I'd argue they're all fantasy. One just kind of toes into sci-fi a little bit. And I want to talk about my favorite badass ladies who I love, could kick my ass, and I don't want to meet in a dark alley. So let's go ahead and get started. First up is booktube favorite Mia from Nevernight by J. Kristoff. So Mia is an assassin. She is an assassin who actually assassinates people. What a concept. And she is a woman that you don't want to meet in a dark alley, seriously. She is beautiful and tough and horrible and awful, and I love her. She smokes cigarettes, she probably spits on the street, she probably glares at old ladies. She's just absolutely great. I love her. So basically this series follows Mia as she takes revenge on the people who killed her family when she was very, very young. It is a fantasy magic school book that kind of evolves into so much more. I know that these books are quite controversial. People either love them or they hate them. I personally loved the first 2, hated the last one, which is kind of unfortunate, but Mia is such a fun character. I really, really enjoyed reading about her. Next up is probably my favorite murder girl, the murder girl who started my love of murder girls. This is Monza Mercado from Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first of these standalone books set in his First Law world. So we have the First Law trilogy, then we have these 3 standalone novels that tie into the world, and now we have another trilogy that's in progress. So Monza is fantastic. She is a mercenary. She leads this sort of huge and quite terrifying mercenary band with her brother, and at the beginning of this book she is betrayed by her employer. Her brother is killed and she is basically garroted and thrown down a mountainside and left for dead. However, she is not dead, and she has decided she's going to get revenge on the people who ruined her life. She is awesome. I love her and I'm quite terrified of her. She's such a wonderful character. I really, really love Joe Abercrombie's female characters. I feel like they have so much kind of dimension to them beyond just the typical kind of fantasy female sometimes template that you can get. She's amazing. She's terrifying. I absolutely adore her. And when I think like badass bitch in fantasy, I think of Monza Mercado. Next up is a woman who's a little bit different from the other ladies on this list. This is called Shay from Jade City by Fonda Lee. I don't want to say a huge amount about why she is a fabulous murder girl, but if you've read this series so far, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So Shay is the daughter of the Call family, who are basically a crime family on this island called Kacon. And in Kacon, the people have this kind of genetic predisposition to essentially have their bodies enhanced by jade. It enhances your power, your strength, your speed, everything. It kind of gives you superpowers if you are a green bone, one of these warriors who can use jade in this way. And she in the beginning of this book has run off to university in a foreign country. She doesn't really want anything to do with this life, and she ends up having to come back. And she's fabulous. There are a lot of badass women in this book, and she really, really comes into her own, and I absolutely love it. One of the most badass scenes from this book in particular is involves Shay, shall we say, and it's just fabulous. If you haven't read these, you really, really should. The next character comes from one of the mega debut novels from 2019 that I only just got around to reading in quarantine. My next character is Gideon Nav from Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the one that kind of creeps into sci-fi a little bit, although I would very much argue that it combines sci-fi and fantasy, but maybe has some stronger fantasy elements. So in this book we follow a character named Gideon, and she is an orphan in the House of the Ninth, which is one of the major houses in the Empire. Everyone practices necromancy. She hates it there because it's a horrible sounding place, and she's constantly trying to escape, but she gets her chance to earn her freedom by becoming the cavalier for the heir of the ninth house and going on this kind of mission for the Emperor. Gideon is amazing. I love Gideon so much. She's a foul-mouthed, kind of horny, sassy woman who's an amazing swordswoman and just has no time for anyone's shit. And she's just great. I absolutely loved her. I loved her kind of sparring relationship with Harrowhawk, who is the heir to the ninth house, and I loved the way that she navigated the challenges of this particular story. This book is super, super fun. For me, it was well worth the hype. Although not necessarily my favorite book of the year, it is definitely super fun and has an amazing audiobook. So if you haven't picked this up and you want some badass ladies with swords, you should give it a try. The next Murder Girl comes from a fantastic and quite large fantasy book. Iad from Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon is one of my favorite characters ever. She's absolutely fantastic. So this book is basically split into two different stories, one that takes place in the East and one that takes place in the West. Iad is in the storyline from the West. So basically she is a lady in waiting to Queen Sabran the Ninth, and she really has her loyalties lying with a group of mages, and her job is basically to secretly watch over Sabran. And she is amazing. She is fantastic. She is so cool. I absolutely loved her. I loved her kind of stealthing around trying to find assassins. I loved all of her kind of sneakiness, and I loved how absolutely badass she is. She has so many complexities to her character that I absolutely love that I don't want to go into right now, but if you're curious to hear a little bit more about this book, I actually do have a full review for this one on my channel, so I'll link that above. But Iad is just absolutely amazing. Moving back into Grimdark for our final two books, the next character is Anne from Priest of Bones by Peter McLean. So Anne is a side character. She is basically the second in command to Thomas Piety, who is a man returning from war. He comes back to his city and he realizes that all of his kind of businesses have been taken over by rival gangs because he is indeed a gangster. So the whole kind of plot of the book is them reclaiming their territory. And there's a lot of dark stuff in this particular book. When I go ahead and do my favorite grimdark books, this is definitely going to be on that list, and it tackles a lot of issues that grimdark doesn't always handle very well in a really good way, and Anne is a really good example of that. So there's a ton of content warnings that go with this. I think I listed them on my Goodreads review, so you can go ahead and check that out. My Goodreads is linked down below, and you can go ahead and see some of the stuff that Anne has been through. But she is amazing. She is a character who you would imagine would be quite masculinized, but she still has a kind of feminine side. She has a romance and everything that happens in the book, and she's a complete and total badass. And the way that Thomas Piety puts all of his faith in her to like get shit done is fantastic. They have one of my favorite platonic relationships. So this is a super fun and I think criminally underrated grimdark book that you should absolutely read. And the last murder girl on this list, what list of murder girls would be complete without our wonderful Rin from the Poppy War by R.F. Kuang? I have a feeling that you all know exactly what the Poppy War is about and why Rin is a badass murder girl, but basically Rin is a dark-skinned peasant girl. She's a war orphan, and she is going to basically be sold off in marriage to a horrible man by her sort of foster family. So she decides she's going to take her life into her own hands. She takes this incredibly difficult test and she places into the top military academy in the country. And the book kind of starts out as sort of the YA fantasy school trope, and then war breaks out in the middle of it and she has to go to war and become a soldier. Rin is amazing. She definitely blurs the lines between hero and villain. She's very much the anti-hero, but she does some real dark stuff in this, especially at the end of this book. I think that just that particular event, you know what I'm talking about, earns her a place on top Murdergirls. But she is fantastic. I adore her. I can't help but love her. I don't care what she does. But she's an absolutely phenomenal character, and she really, truly fits the definition of a murder girl. So there you have it, 7 of my absolute favorite murder girls. I would love to know in the comments below if you have any particularly badass female heroines or side characters that you would like to shout out, as well as if you've read any of these books or if they are on your TBR. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.